Thank you, everybody, for being here. Hey, great. Well, thank you all so much for being here. In the interest of time, we'll go ahead and get started. I am going to provide a very brief introduction, just as a welcome to our STEAM webinar series, and we're so looking forward to having Dr. Savage speak in just a minute or so. Make sure, let's see. So, as those of you who have attended before aren't know, but just as a reminder for those who haven't, or intro for those who haven't, the network is something that includes 5 institutions across the Southwest. So, currently includes Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine, New Mexico State University, Northern Arizona University. Our newest addition is the University of Arizona, who we're very excited to have as part of the network, and of course, the University of New Mexico. And what the program does is we support scholars from from kind of basically once you have your bachelor's degree and up. So post-bac, master's, graduate students, medical students, all the way through the stages, like early stage investigators. And what we do is we provide support through mentorship opportunities, as well as travel scholarships, webinars like this, and other institutional things that may be available at one institution. We provide a cross linkage, so you may be able to access things at NAU or U of A or NMSU that otherwise, as someone maybe here at UNM would not otherwise have access to. So if you're interested in learning more about it or applying for a scholarship for travel or anything like that, please you see our link here. And so some housekeeping really quickly is essentially that we will be recording the webinar, and following the webinar, please look for an evaluation. This gives us an opportunity to fine tune the offerings that we provide in the way of our webinar series. So I'm going to stop sharing so I can introduce Dr. Savage, and he can um, load up his slides. And so we are very grateful to have Dr. Savage here today to talk about his journey as a first generation person in academic medicine. And he's going to talk to us about how his experience has really shaped the physician that he is. And we have been very fortunate to have Dr. Savage be very involved in STEAM for several years now, and serves as a great mentor. And this is the first time we're having him speak, and I'm very grateful to him. So I will hand it over, and without further ado, thank you, Dr. Savage.
Uh, can you all hear me okay? Great. And then do you see the little laser pointer on the screen? Great.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm David, and what I thought I would do is just tell you my whole story, like how I got here, and I'll give you like I'll take you way back, like before I even started college, and just tell you about this whole journey. Because the thing is, I am truly a first generation college student. You know, both my parents did not have bachelor's degrees when I was born. My dad didn't even have a high school diploma when I was born. And so that has made things a little bit more challenging for me. And I bet you there are mentees in STEAM who would relate to this. And I just want to say that you can get to exactly where I am with that challenge. And I just want to convey that throughout everything that I'm going to tell you about today. Well, I'm going to take you all over the United States for places I've been for training. So the first yellow triangle is where I started in East Texas. And then I went up to North Texas for college. And then I went down to Dallas and I had a career there as a software developer for a few years. And then I went down to Houston, where I was at the UT Medical School and MD Anderson for an MD PhD training. And then after 9 years there, I went way up to Ohio, in Northern Ohio, and got to live there for 2 years and work at the Cleveland Clinic. And then, for reasons that I'll tell you about in a little bit, I moved all the way across the country over to San Diego and spent 4 years in San Diego, 1 year at UC San Diego, 3 years at Scripps, which is where I did the medical oncology part of training. And then finally, I ended up here in New Mexico. I really love this journey because I think there is something really nice about seeing how other health systems work, seeing how research works in other places. And so really, if you get the opportunity in whatever training path you're on to get to travel all over and see other places and get trained by people in diverse places, it really enriches your education and allows you to bring it back to where you started from. Well, anyway, let's just go to the beginning. I am from this small little East Texas town called Lindale. The biggest claim to fame of Lindale is that it's also the origin of Miranda Lambert, who is a country music star. And it's also the origin of me. I just came a year after her. So, anyway, we started in East Texas, and this is truly what downtown Lindale looks like. And when I was there, it was like 3,000 people. Nowadays, it's blossomed to 6,000 people, but it's still a very, very small place. It's the kind of place where a lot of people, like, they're born, they grow up there, they don't go too far away for their education, and they come back and they stay their entire life. That's kind of the traditional trajectory. So it's really a remarkable thing that I've managed to be all over Texas for education, and then I managed to leave the state and come to New Mexico and become a medical oncologist here because this was really humble beginnings. Well, anyway, I want to tell you a little bit about my parents. This is a picture of them from 99. I did not exactly seek permission to put this in here, but anyway, both of my parents, my mom, they were both in healthcare. My mom was a nurse, and my father, he originally was in the Navy, then he was a jeweler, and then he worked in a foundry as a welder, and then finally he settled on a career as a biomedical technician where he repaired X-ray equipment and medical equipment at hospitals. So suffice to say, I was around healthcare people a lot early on in life, but we didn't have any physicians in the family. And in fact, when I told my parents that I might want to become a physician, they were very guarded about that because they had no clue how to advise me about how to get there. And they really wanted to kind of protect me from the defeat that would come if I was not successful. So they were very guarded about it. It wasn't just like, oh, you should be a doctor and, that is the predetermined path. Like it was kind of working against a lot of obstacles from day one. And this is a picture of me, like way back when, back in 2003, as just a feeble little high school student. And this was just months before I was going to go on to college to start my college education. Well, because we didn't have any people in our family to advise me, and I didn't have any friends to advise me, I at least had the wherewithal at age 18 to know that I should probably go to a place with a track record of helping people become a physician or get into healthcare because I knew I was going to need a lot of mentorship. And basically, my college plans boil down to this. I wanted to enjoy college and living away from home. I bet you some of the attendees here can relate to that. I wanted to potentially really work toward a medical career, but that was by no means certain because even at 18, I knew that this was a very hard career path and that there was a lot of uncertainty and that even if I tried to do everything, I might not be successful. So that's why I put the question mark there. And the last frame of this, my parents really emphasized, son, you should have a backup plan because if this medicine thing doesn't work, you should really have a backup plan. So I like went into college with that agenda in mind. So this is where I went. It's called Austin College. It's a liberal arts college, very tiny. Like the whole student population is 1,300 students, and it's in North Texas. But it was like really the perfect place for me for a lot of reasons. I got really small class sizes, a lot of one-on-one time with my teachers. I was able to do a lot of extracurricular things that I might not have been able to pursue at a big university. And most importantly, they had just an excellent pre-medical advising program and a really, really good track record of helping people get into medical school. So I knew I was kind of in the right place. I didn't know how to get there, but I knew that I was surrounded by the mentors and kinds of people that I needed to be around to help me achieve my goal. So I'm going to embed within this talk several lessons that I have accumulated in this journey, and I just wanted to share them with those of you who are just starting your journey, whatever it may be. And my first lesson is this, college is fun and don't let it pass you by. There were some people that I started college with who, they walked in day one and they said, I'm pre-med. I don't want to do the fun stuff. I don't want to do the extracurricular stuff. I just want to take the science classes, take the MCAT, do the shadowing, go to medical school. I'm just here to pass the time until medical school starts. I was not that person. I like really wanted to enjoy being at a liberal arts college and get to enjoy all the other diverse educational activities that you get to do at a small liberal arts college. And I'm going to show a very self-deprecating picture next. Because one of the things that I did was I took this course where we learned how to scuba dive, and then they took us down to Mexico and we went scuba diving. And this was literally a college class that I took. So here's a picture of me on the front of the boat. I just put this in to emphasize the idea that you got to have fun along this journey. So here it goes. Here's a picture of me, a much younger me, on the front of the boat in the Gulf of Mexico scuba diving. And this was literally a course that I did in college. So anyway, I had a lot of fun in school, and that was really, really important to me. The next lesson I want to share is that the whole reason I chose to go where I went to college is because I wanted to get some good mentorship. And I looked for mentors everywhere because my parents, like, they were supportive of what I wanted to do, but they were like, son, we don't know what to tell you to do. And we know it's hard. Good luck and we'll support you 100%. But I needed to look for mentors. So it really started day one. I was in a freshman seminar, and the teaching assistants for the freshman seminar were senior students who were actively applying to medical school. So I picked their brain and said, hey, I kind of want to be where you are in 3 years. What do I need to do? And they gave me a lot of advice, and I took that to heart. I've also got a picture here of two people that just had a profound impact on my life at the college level. Now, we took this picture back in 2022 when I was back for homecoming. But this is Dr. Reed on the left side and Dr. Carr on the right side. Dr. Reed's a biologist, and she was my freshman seminar teacher, and she remained my advisor throughout college. She wrote multiple letters of recommendation. I met with her every 6 months throughout my college career, and she was very supportive of my health sciences career and really provided a lot of positive encouragement along the way. This guy on the right, Dr. Carr, he was one of my chemistry teachers. And he really changed my whole career trajectory because I had had him for 2 semesters, and he came to me one day in our organic chemistry lab and he said, "Hey, have you applied for our summer research program?" And honestly, first generation college student here, I had not even considered the summer research program. I thought that was something people well beyond me, that was something they did, not something I could do. And I had not even like considered their application, but I really thought the world of this man. And because he said he thought I would be good at it and he thought I should apply, I submitted my application. I got accepted, and I ended up getting to work in a biochemistry lab on campus for a summer. And, the story goes, I joined an MD PhD program. I would not have done it if this man had not come up to me one day and said, you should apply for the summer research program. I mean, that's just like one of those pivotal, like forks in the road where I took a turn that I didn't expect because this wise mentor knew my abilities and aptitude and kind of pushed me one direction that I wouldn't have gone if he had not said that to me. And I think about that all the time. I'm like so grateful to this man. Well, anyway, I worked on campus for a summer, worked and learned how to do research with a biochemist, and I really ended up loving it. I thought, wow, I would love to keep doing research in the future. And all of a sudden, I started thinking about a career as a physician scientist. So here I had come into college thinking maybe healthcare, but have a backup plan. And now I was thinking about physician scientists. And when I went and shared that with my family, they were just, they were confused and they didn't really know what to say. But fortunately, I had all these mentors to advise me. Well, we did our summer research program in the summer of 2005, and we got some good data. And so in the spring of 2006, my lab mate and I were able to go out to the University of North Carolina at Asheville and present our work. And this is yet another self-deprecating picture of a very young me standing in front of my first ever picture, or first ever poster at a national conference. And I just thought this was the coolest thing to get to present our work at a national conference. And this guy on the right, his name is Drew. He later became an orthopedic surgeon and is a really, really good friend of mine. So I still think of this whole research thing so fondly because this research thing led to another research experience and led to another research experience. And ultimately, that culminated in getting to go to an MD PhD program. So there are some other notable things that I did in college. For the record, I majored in biochemistry and computer science. Why computer science? Well, because my parents said I needed a backup plan, and computer science, even back in 2007, was a pretty good backup plan. I played clarinet in the concert band. That was another little thing that you got to do at a small liberal arts college. I was a resident assistant for my senior year. In my senior year, I became a volunteer big brother with big brothers and big sisters, which was very enriching and fulfilling. And toward the beginning of my senior year of college, I decided that I wanted to take at least one, maybe two gap years after college because I had worked really hard in college and I wanted to go to medical school, but I really needed some time to work in the real world and not be a student for a little while. And so I made this conscious choice to take some gap time. And at first I didn't know what I was going to do, but because I had this computer science major and I had a really good relationship with one of my teachers, he approached me in the spring, introduced me to a company that he had a really good relationship with. They invited me for an interview and I was offered a job. When I took that job, I agreed to work for them for 2 years because I knew that they would be training me and there'd be a lot of onboarding. So I wanted to make best use of their time and work for them for 2 years. I would say at the beginning of taking those two gap years, it felt like that was going to be an eternity because I saw all my friends going on to medical school and graduate school and law school or starting their forever careers. And so I wondered if I was making the right choice. But at the end of the 2 years, I just knew it was the right choice because in those 2 years, I didn't have the stress of exams and projects. I made tons of friends. I really enjoyed my job. It was very stress-free. And when I think about those 2 years from '07 to '09, where I had my gap years, it still remains like two of the best years of life because it was zero stress, zero life responsibility, disposable income. Really got to get out and enjoy the world and grow as a person before going back to do a really hard thing, which was an MD PhD program. Here's a picture of the team that I worked with at that software company. These three folks were really good friends, and we worked day in, day out on some software projects together. All three of them are still software developers today, but at the end of my 2 years with the company, I kind of realized that I still really wanted to do healthcare and do research, and so I didn't think working in the software space was going to be my forever thing. But it was a really, really nice thing to do for a couple of years. So in 2008, I started applying to MD PhD programs. This is where you do medical school and you do graduate school. Sometimes it can be done in less than 9 years. In my case, it was 9 years, but it's basically two different school experiences combined together. And so here's a picture of some classmates of mine. I went to the McGovern Medical School at UT Houston, and I was in the MSTP or MD PhD program. And the reason I included this, again, a very self-deprecating photo, is because we took this photo at a pizza parlor after our last exam of our first semester of medical school. And when I look at this picture now and I see all these faces, it just brings back all kinds of really good memories. This guy right here is now an emergency physician. This one's an emergency physician. This woman back here is a vascular surgeon. This person's a gastroenterologist. And then you have me, the medical oncologist. So it's a really good setup for a really good joke. And then here's another picture of me standing in front of the medical school. This ended up being like a postcard that our college sent out saying, hey, come to Austin College. You can maybe develop red hair and be in front of a med school someday too. And I really enjoyed going to medical school. Med school, just for the record, the first year or so is really hard. It was a big adjustment, especially for somebody like me who's A, first generation in college, and B, somebody who's been out working for a couple of years. To go back to the grind of like studying all the time and taking tests and feeling that stress was the most difficult the first semester, but then it got easier and easier. And then when I had the chance to start working with patients and getting the fulfillment and the satisfaction that comes from that, medical school became really just a lovely place. And every year after that got better and better and better. Well, after 3 years of medical school, I switched gears and I started graduate school. And there was a couple of labs that I was a part of when I was in graduate school. So the first lab that I had the chance to join was this really, really big group. And so you can see me standing right back here, far in the back. And this was the lab of Dr. Curley, who was a surgical oncologist at MD Anderson. And he had assembled this huge team of people to work on some really cool projects related to nanomedicine in mouse models, ultimately to try to get some things to humans. And the reason I included this picture is because right here is Dr. Rita Serta, who I know is in attendance today on this STEAM. And she was one of my first science mentors. And as luck had it, she came back to UNM and became a faculty member here. And now I'm a faculty member here. And we just started recently working on a project together. So it's just so cool to see this picture from 2012 with a person I met in Houston who was one of my first pivotal science mentors, who now I get to work with at the University of New Mexico. It's just so nice. It's just so great.
And I've had
So
a lot of fun working with you too, David.
oh, good. That's great. Thank you so much. So while I was while I was working in the lab, I started doing something else that I would say was like another one of these big pivot points on my career. And I had been doing a lot of volunteer work and service work in the Houston community while I was in my first couple of years of medical school. And this probably started when I was in college, when I was a big brother, and I really started to realize that if you are so fortunate in life to get a good education and be in a stable situation with your job, and you turn out to be, taken care of, there's I feel like a social responsibility to like give back to your community. And I started to like double down on that when I was in graduate school. And I applied for a fellowship that I did concurrent with graduate school called the Albert Schweitzer Fellowship, and it allowed me to work with the refugee community in Houston. So I've got a couple of pictures from that. And again, when I look at these pictures, it just also brings back really good memories. So I worked on this project for a couple of years as a Schweitzer Fellow. This is a picture from a health fair we did with some of the members of the refugee community in Houston. This goofy bee suit is a thing provided by the Texas Medical Association for their program called Be Wise Immunize, BEE, Be Wise Immunize. And so we were doing flu vaccines. And then here, this picture on the right, we would go out into the communities and do education classes on the weekends with refugees in the community rooms of their apartments. And I love this picture, one, because this guy in holding the bottle of hand sanitizer was one of the nicest interpreters that I worked with in the 2 years I was doing this project. And then this woman sitting right behind him later became an emergency physician. And many years later, I ran into her at the emergency department at the VA in San Diego, because it turns out she ended up in San Diego and I ended up in San Diego, just in different times. But we ran into each other one night when we were both working. And I was like, wow, do you remember us working on the refugee project? And she said, yeah, I think about it all the time. So anyway, I really got involved in community-based service and community-based research when I was doing this. And it kind of turned on a light bulb to say, I'm learning these research skills in a lab doing basic science, but I could do these kind of research things in public health in the community in the future. And I decided that's what I wanted to do whenever I became a doctor and maybe a medical oncologist in the future. The second lab I joined was this one. It was the Bean Lab, and this is a picture of us in 2014 at the neuroscience retreat. So this is Dr. Bean on the far left, and these three women on my right are all people who were graduate students at the time. So Sahili here in the middle is now a vascular neurologist at the University of Pennsylvania. This woman is a program manager at the UT Medical School in San Antonio, and this woman's a program manager at the same graduate school I went to, the UT Graduate School in Houston. But anyway, we were a small motley team of graduate students with our advisor, Dr. Bean. And this is where I learned a lot more skills to ultimately finish a project and be able to graduate from the PhD program. So I've thought about this a lot, and some of you on this call are probably not certain yet which direction you're going to go in your career. Some of you might be thinking you are going to become a doctor, a physician. Some of you think you might be a doctor, like a research doctor. And I would say both are excellent career paths. There's just different pros and cons to each one. So if you look at the left side, on the physician side, medical school is hard to get into. There's a lot of material, not a lot of time to study. So that makes it sometimes stressful. The hours can be long and irregular, especially as you get further in your career. There's lots of human interaction, and that's not for everybody. I get it. Sometimes there's odd fluids and smells that you have to encounter, and it can be taxing on family relationships. So those are pros and cons. But I have to say, I love the career and I wouldn't do it any other way. On the PhD side, it's different. It's unstructured and exploratory, which means that you get a lot of time on your own to develop questions and test them and learn research skills. But the endpoints are not clearly defined. It can take a long time to graduate. It took me 5 years. Experiments often fail, and you have to troubleshoot them and figure out why is this not working. And then ultimately, you have to publish what you're going to do. So I just say that to say that both of these are great, great careers, but the stress points are different. And that would be something, if I was considering either career or a combined career, is just important to think about. Well, anyway, I ultimately graduated. So here's a picture of Dr. Bean and me at graduation from the PhD program. And then here's a picture of the entire family at graduation. And I remember how just happy that my father here was that I made it out of college. So you can imagine like inviting him to a graduation ceremony for an MD PhD program just took the cake. And it was just so special to me to get to share my graduation with my parents who went through this whole journey with me. Well, if you're keeping track so far, we're at 2018. So now we've completed 9 years of stuff, but we're not quite done yet. So the next part of becoming a physician scientist is you have to go do a residency somewhere. So we did this residency match. This is a picture of me and my family on our match day. And I was just on cloud nine because I had found out that day that I had matched at the Cleveland Clinic into their clinician educator track where I could learn to be a really good teacher while I was also learning to be an internist. And that was just so cool. The idea of getting to move across the country to Northern Ohio, it's not for everybody. Northern Ohio is not for everybody, but for me, it seemed like a lovely place to be. And it really was. So here's a picture of my intern class at our intern retreat in June 2018. Here's me standing right behind the L in Cleveland. This sign's pretty iconic, and you can see the whole downtown landscape of Cleveland in the picture. So this was my first introduction to Cleveland after moving there across the country. And this is a picture of our whole intern class. This was at our retreat when we were being promoted from first year residents to second year residents. And again, looking at this picture just brings back great memories because all these folks have gone on to do just awesome things. I still stay in touch with a lot of them. And I really consider myself so fortunate to have had the opportunity to train at the Cleveland Clinic. The other thing is that residency compared to graduate school was in a way nice because in graduate school, especially toward the end, I was working a lot on weekends. I was working a lot late at night to write papers and go over the data. And so when I started residency, people who'd never been in graduate school were like so stressed by the schedule. And for me, I was like, oh, you mean I get these days off? I get to get these weeks off for vacation. The day starts at 6 and ends at 6, and I don't necessarily have to do anything in the evening. Man, that's amazing. That's so different than my last 2 years of graduate school. Like I'm just loving a predictable schedule. So it was actually really nice to be a resident. Well, if you're keeping track, internal medicine residency normally is 3 years long. And I have the date up here, 2018 to 2021. But I didn't spend all 3 of those years in Cleveland because the thing is, life sometimes does unexpected things. And my spouse got into graduate school at UC San Diego. And so then we were in a pickle because I still had one more year left in Cleveland and she needed to start her PhD program in San Diego. And that brings me to my next point, which is the world is very small, and you should be nice to everyone you meet, and you should nurture your relationships. This is just, I think, a truism anywhere, but I think especially in medicine and science, it's true. I mean, we've already talked about Dr. Serta, who's here. We're now back in the same circle. But I want to tell you another story. I found out that my spouse was going to be going to San Diego. And out of the blue, this guy that I met my freshman year of college gave me a call and we were chatting. And I told him she was going to San Diego. Well, lo and behold, he did his residency at UC San Diego. And he said, well, Dave, can I reach out to UC San Diego and see if they could accommodate you transferring across the country and going to San Diego? And I said, hey, friend, that would be really nice. I won't like put any emotional stock in it, but please do. Well, the next day I got a text saying they had a spot, and within 2 weeks I was offered a job in San Diego, and our whole family moved to San Diego. That was a relationship forged over like 20 years, and it opened up a door for me in my adult life. So if you meet somebody really cool in college and you become friends with them, just keep investing in those relationships because you never know when somebody like that can help you out in the future. So suffice to say, I spent my last year at UC San Diego, and at the time, it seemed like a stressful thing to move across the country right in the middle of the pandemic to start a whole new program with a whole new group of people. But these were all the people I graduated with. All of them are accomplished, amazing doctors too. And I really consider myself so lucky because I got to know all those people back in Cleveland, and they're part of my professional network and friend network now. And I got to meet all these people in San Diego, and they're also part of my professional and friend network. And I just am lucky beyond measure. I mean, I had a lot of mentors along the way, but there was a lot of luck and a lot of really opportune things that happened. And I think that is true for many of you too. Many of you are going to have things that happen that you don't necessarily plan on in 2026. But somebody told me once that you can't ever have certainty when you make hard choices. You can just be well informed and be as informed as possible. And sometimes you just have to take a risk. And that's what we did with this move to San Diego. And it turned out just amazing. And I wouldn't do it any other way. So, lesson 5, enjoy the journey. Don't delay your happiness. When I was in my last year of fellowship, this patient asked me, she said, well, how long have you been doing this education thing? And I like added it up and I got past one hand and I got past the other hand and I got past the next hand. And I said, well, it's been 15 years. And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I was like, oh, don't be sorry. Like I literally chose to do this. And number two, I've been able to live all over the country and do so many cool things. And I've enjoyed every step along the way. So it's not 15 years to get to the destination. I enjoyed all 15 years. And now it's just the next step in the journey. So for those of you that are embarking on your own journey, don't feel like you have to just like give up 5 years, 10 years, 15 years of your life and then be happy when you're in your mid 30s or mid 40s. You should just be happy now and enjoy what you're doing, and that'll make it so much more fun. So I really feel that way about my journey. So I that was the tee up to show you some fun pictures because in 2021 to 2024, I was a fellow at Scripps, which is a big health system in San Diego. And I could show you some pictures of me in a white coat in a clinic, but I did a lot of other really fun things when we were in San Diego. So this is a picture of me about 6,000 feet above sea level at Mount Laguna, which is only about an hour's drive from La Jolla, where we lived. And then this is a picture of a bunch of friends from our fellowship. We had just finished a hike at Lake Poway, which is a little suburb right outside of San Diego. All of the people that are standing by me are oncologists. And in fact, this woman who's four down from me, she just got married 2 weeks ago in India, and we had the chance to go to her wedding in Delhi. So that was super, super cool. So I had a wonderful time in fellowship. Sometimes when you get to advanced training in medicine, people think, wow, that's just going to be such a grind. That's as hard as it gets. How could you possibly do that? My experience was completely different. Our fellowship was so supportive of us as trainees and as human beings. They gave us lots of time to develop projects and to develop friendships and relationships. And fellowship for me was just a really nice time. It was relatively stress-free. I was, of course, learning a lot, but I was also doing a lot of really fun stuff. And that's just all to say, enjoying the journey is a really important part of this whole narrative. Well, I've had two examples so far of a round of a small world experience, and I want to give you one more example. In the February of 2024, I was able to go back to Cleveland Clinic and present at a immune-related adverse events conference. This woman that's standing right next to me, her name is Pauline Funchain. She was my very first melanoma mentor. I met her as an intern at Cleveland Clinic. Nowadays, she's a senior faculty member at Stanford University in California, but she has just been totally invested in my education and my career and has really been a great sponsor for me as a junior faculty member. We published something together that we'd been working on for several years right when I started at UNM. I still reach out to her for help when I need it, and she's just been a really great ally for me. And then this woman here in the coat on the picture on the right, her name's Dr. Bolin, and she was my melanoma mentor in fellowship. So it really was so cool that Dr. Bolin and I got to go back to Cleveland Clinic where it all started at a conference planned by Dr. Funchain. And I got to have all my melanoma family all in one place in Cleveland just months before I finished fellowship and came to Albuquerque. So going to this conference was super cool. So just to summarize, I've got a little infographic to describe where we've been. Start out in East Texas, go to college at Austin College, ended up working in Dallas for a bit as a software developer, went down to Houston to be an MD PhD student, went out to Cleveland, went out to San Diego, stayed to be a fellow, and now I'm at the University of New Mexico as a junior faculty member. And when I look at the whole totality of what I've done, remembering where I started, which is my parents saying, we're not really sure if you should do that because that sounds really hard. The fact that I had so many twists and turns and ended up becoming a physician scientist and get to be at such an amazing university, it really touches my heart every time I think about the whole experience. So my last lesson I want to share with you is one that my dad told me from the very beginning. And he said, son, I don't really care what you do in your life, but you really should try to do something that you love, because if you do that, then you won't really feel like you're working and you can give back to the world and you can support yourself, but you won't feel like it's just a grind, because in most careers, even being a physician, people can work in the same job for 30 plus years. And he said you should really try to do something that you love. And that's what I do. So today I am an academic medical oncologist. I get to have a really focused clinic. I see people with sarcoma, melanoma, and advanced skin cancers. I get to teach students and future doctors very often. And I get to do research. I enjoy research in skin cancer prevention and cancer care equity. And this career that I have is really the career that my parents could only dream of, because I get to be at a place where I really do love being here. I get to serve people in my community. I get to do really fun stuff like work with learners and get to do research. And it took 15 years to get here, but it's really the coolest job in the world. And it's not for everybody. And there's lots of other ways to be a doctor. There's lots of other ways to be a physician. There's lots of other ways to be a researcher. But I really have found this to be a really cool combination to get to do both. This is not my only job title, though. I'm really proud just to really double down on this whole enjoying the journey and not delaying all your life milestones. I'm also a really proud father. So this is a picture of our daughter right outside the Taj Mahal. This was taken 3 weeks ago. And this is a picture of my whole family at the turmeric ceremony before the wedding for my oncology friend that we went to in India. So you can have all these things. And I will leave you with just a couple of final points. Some of you who are here today on this seminar are not sure which way you want to go, and you don't maybe know how to get there. And maybe you're still considering whether you want to do research or be a physician or do none of that and do something totally different. And I really emphatically believe that every person will have a different path in their life, and that's totally fine. What I would say is try to enjoy the journey and make memories as you go, because that's super important. Life is so short, and you don't know how long you don't know how long you have in life. And so it's very important, even if you're going to undertake something as really tremendous as becoming a physician scientist, it's important to enjoy the journey and not delay the fun. It's okay to try new things and change the plan entirely. That was the case for me. I worked as a software developer. I did not plan on that when I started college. I became a physician scientist. I did not plan on that when I was starting my journey, and that's okay. Whatever you do, you're often not going to know how to get there. So you're going to need to find mentors and seek out mentors frequently and with intention. Some mentors are good at advising for some things and not good at other things. And I would say that I have many mentors in my life, and that's really important and that's really good. 5, be honest with yourself. Find your passion, follow through to it. And as you get busier, it's okay to say no to things that don't align with where your passions are. You don't have to do everything in the world just because you believe that somebody else expects it. Instead, when you get to a point where you can make your own decisions, choose the things you want to do because they bring you joy. And it's okay to say no to things that don't bring you joy. And then last of all, and it's been a recurring theme throughout this presentation, just be sure to invest in friendships and family. And don't put that off to the very end. Like, keep doing that because these are the people that are going to sponsor your career. They're going to support you when emotionally things are rough. They're going to cheer you up when you've had a bad day or you've had a patient die or you've had research that hasn't worked the way you want it to. And those are really the things, the people in your life that will help you keep going. So I want to say thank you all for allowing me to speak with you all today. It really means the world to me. I have my email address here and my web address here. And for those, especially trainees who are still trying to find your path, if anything I've said really resonates with you and you feel like I could be of any help, I do welcome you to reach out to me by email. And that's all I've got. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was so wonderful. And I think did we already? Oh no, someone was just clapping. I think. If we have plenty of time for questions. Thank you also for considering that. So we have time to talk through. I'm a little bit older than you are, but my very first poster looked very similar to that with all the different printouts and posts, and it's really fun to see. Um, and hearing all about your journey in such a thoughtful way was really lovely. Does anybody have any specific questions or things they'd like to comment on or ask about?
I just want to say congratulations. I didn't know all of your history, but congratulations. And I didn't know you had a daughter either. So that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much again, Dr. Savage, and we really appreciate you being able to do this. And our seminars are usually on a different Wednesday in the month, but we were very happy to accommodate so you could have that wonderful experience in India and share it with us. So that was really cool.
Thank you.
So thank you for being with us today. Our next webinar is actually already next week, and it's going to be the final uh, topic or the final speakers of our My Journey topics. So we'll hear from some speakers from NMSU and Burrell. Actually, I think they're both from NMSU in this case. And so please come next Wednesday at noon to see that. Martha put the link for the evaluation in the chat. And we will also have this excellent seminar up on our website if you missed any part of it and want to revisit and see the beginnings or anything. And I just really appreciated your perspective today and really loved the just seeing the entire scope of where you have been and where you are and the perspective of being a good citizen in addition to being excellent in your field was really meaningful to me too. So thank you for sharing today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And yeah, so I will share my last slide here, which just basically is what I just shared. So our next webinar will be next Wednesday at noon, and then we will start with our second block of the webinar series, which is Scholar Talks, and then we'll have some folks from Arizona sharing with us. So, All right, everybody. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.